Something was wrong with my mug. I couldn't say exactly what it was, but it wasn't where I'd left it last night. It's a small thing. I could have moved it myself without remembering it. 32 isn't the age to start complaining about memory, but work was sucking the juices out of me. I'd caught myself doing things on autopilot a lot lately. I took a sip of my coffee and grumbled it was too sweet. I never put sugar in it. The house I'd gotten from Grandma Agatha was old but sturdy. 2 stories, with 3 bedrooms and a spacious living room. Too big for a single woman, as my mom liked to remind me. But I loved the space. I could breathe fully here, unlike at my parents' house, where my every move was accompanied by comments and advice. I turned off my laptop and stretched. Out the window, I could see my neighbor Dexter Povey fiddling with his pickup truck. A reliable, silent man who said hello every morning but never got into conversation. There aren't many people like that in Durham. Everyone knows everything about each other, and gossip spreads faster than a virus. As I was getting ready for work, I noticed another oddity. My favorite earrings had disappeared from my dressing table. I remembered leaving them there. After half an hour of fruitless searching, I had to choose another pair. I must have put them somewhere else and forgotten. Or, no, silly. Who would break into my house? You're getting paranoid, Mira, I said to my reflection as I buttoned my blouse. Thoughts of family came uninvited, as they often did in the morning. The last time we all got together was 3 months ago for Dad's birthday. Mom, flawless hair, indulgent smile, had questioned me about my personal life in front of all the guests. When will you finally settle down, Mira? I had 2 children when I was your age. And Leonard, my younger brother, sat next to her as always, nodding along and throwing smug glances at me. He had always been Mom's favorite, obedient, proper. He did everything that was expected of him. He got an economics degree, married Zelda, whom my mother approved of at first sight, worked in a solid company. I was always a difficult child. First, I chose a male profession in IT. Then I refused to live near my parents and moved to my grandmother's house. The phone vibrated. A message from her mother. Don't forget our meeting at 3. We have important matters to discuss. I sighed. It had completely slipped my mind. What important matters? Surely she'd push me again with the sale of the house. Ever since Grandma Agatha left me this house, bypassing my parents, my mom couldn't accept it. It's a family inheritance, not your personal property, she repeated every time we met. Grandma and Mom never got along. Agatha was a strong-willed woman who built her life on her own, without anyone's help. Mom, on the other hand, always relied on men. First her father, then her husband. Perhaps that's why my grandmother bequeathed the house to me, the only one in the family to follow in her footsteps. On my way to work, I caught myself thinking about the missing things again. In the past 2 weeks, it wasn't just earrings. My favorite teacup with kittens, a gift from a coworker last Christmas, disappeared. The books on the living room shelf have moved. And yesterday I couldn't find my flash drive with my work files, even though I remembered leaving it on my desk. At the office, I had another busy day ahead of me. Our company was in the cybersecurity business, and lately clients had been lining up, especially after a high-profile data breach at a competitor. I worked with bank transaction security systems, a nerve-wracking but well-paid job. Cold rake, we're having problems with Morgan Trust's encryption protocol. Vince, the head of the department, appeared at my desk out of the blue. The client was panicking, saying the system was throwing authentication errors. I suppressed a groan. Morgan Trust was our biggest client, and any problems they had automatically became our problems. Give me an hour, I replied, opening the terminal. 3 hours later, when the problem was finally resolved, it turned out the bug was in an update they had installed without warning. I remembered my meeting with my mother. It was almost 4 on the clock. Crap. My phone showed 5 missed calls and an angry message. We've been waiting for you for an hour. As usual, your priorities are misplaced. Call back when you deign to. I decided it would be better to talk to her in person, so I sent a quick, "Sorry, work emergency. I'll be at your place at 6. No sooner had I put the phone away than it vibrated again, an incoming from my mother. I took a deep breath before answering it. Yes, Mom? Finally! Her voice was ringing with annoyance. Your father and I had cleared the time on purpose, And you didn't even deign to tell me you'd be late. I already apologized. I had an emergency. What's the emergency? Did something happen? She was quiet for a moment, and I felt myself tense up. It was a technique I knew well, the pause for dramatic effect. Your father and I wanted to discuss Grandma Agatha's will with you. That's it. Again. Mom, we've discussed this dozens of times. Grandma left the house to me, and I'm not going to sell it. It's not about selling. Her voice turned honeyed, which was always a bad sign. We found some, nuances in the deeds. This is about all of us, Mira. This is a family matter. Something in her tone made me wary. What kind of nuances? The will was notarized. It's all legal. Come and we'll talk about it. Your brother and Zelda will be there too. It's really important, Mira. I could feel the anxiety rising in my chest. Leonard and Zelda? Since when are they interested in Grandma's house? Okay, I'll be there at 6, I replied and disconnected. The rest of the workday passed in a blur. I mechanically performed tasks, but my thoughts kept returning to the upcoming conversation. What were they up to? It had been 2 years since my grandmother's death. Why bring it up again now? At 5:30, I decided I'd had enough. My head was pounding, and the thought of a family meeting made me nauseous. I went into Vince's office and asked for tomorrow off. Was it something serious? He asked, still on the monitor. Family stuff, I answered evasively. Take it, he nodded. You deserve a vacation after today's fiasco with Morgan Trust. I left the office and dialed my mother's number. I'm sorry, but I can't make it. I have a terrible migraine. Why don't we reschedule for tomorrow? It's my day off. But we're all packed. She was outraged. Leonard specifically asked to leave work early. Mom, I really can't. If it's so important, let's do it at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. After a minute of bickering, she reluctantly agreed. I was relieved to have another day to gather my thoughts. Instead of going to my parents' house, I decided to go home. Maybe I could get some quiet time to work or just get some sleep before the family meeting tomorrow. The very thought of having to listen to complaints and innuendo again made me want to lock myself in the house and never come out. On the way home, I bought a bottle of wine and a pizza. An evening of self-pity. Is that what you call it? Whatever. I needed something to calm my nerves. As I turned onto my street, I noticed an unfamiliar car outside my house. A silver Volvo, the kind Leonard usually drove. What was he doing here? And why now, when he was supposed to be waiting for me at my parents' house? I slowed, feeling my heart start to beat faster. Maybe they'd decided to come to my place since I'd canceled the meeting. But then why hadn't they called? As I drove closer, I noticed the front door was ajar. I remembered locking it this morning. Leaving the car around the corner, I quietly approached the house. There were voices coming from inside. Lots of voices, not just Leonard's. Something told me it was better not to announce my presence right away. I cautiously climbed the steps and peered through the ajar door. What I saw gave me a chill. I stood in the doorway of my own house and couldn't believe my eyes. There were boxes, suitcases, and bags with construction store logos lying around in the hallway. The smell of paint wafted from the back of the house, overpowered by the familiar scent of old wood and lavender that my house always smelled like. Grandma's house. I crept inside, trying to tread as quietly as possible. I took off my shoes on the threshold, holding them in my hand. The voices became clearer. They were coming from the second floor, from my bedroom. I recognized the high, slightly shrill voice of Zelda, Leonard's wife, then my mother's laughter. As I climbed the stairs, I felt anger rising inside, mixed with bewilderment. What are they doing in my bedroom? Why do they have keys to my house? And what the hell does that paint smell mean? I froze on the last step of the stairs. The door to the bedroom was wide open. Inside, Zelda, dressed in old jeans and a t-shirt, was running a paint roller over the wall, covering my favorite turquoise paint with something pale pink. Leonard stood at the window, pulling down the blinds. My parents were sitting on the taped bed, discussing something animatedly. What's going on here? My voice sounded hoarse with restrained anger. All 4 of them turned around. For a split second, they looked surprised, even frightened. But then the mother quickly pulled herself together. Myrrh, she exclaimed with feigned joy. We didn't expect you so soon. You said you had a migraine. I said, what are you doing in my house? I stepped into the room feeling my hands shaking. And why are you repainting my bedroom? Zelda giggled nervously, dipping the roller into the paint tray. We're redecorating before we move in, she said with such directness, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Leonard nodded, avoiding my gaze. My parents laughed simultaneously, as if Zelda had said something incredibly witty. That synchronized laughter only increased my anxiety. Settle in? I asked, looking around the room. My things were piled in a corner, some of the furniture had been removed, and the floor was covered with protective tape. Are you crazy? This is my house. Sit down, dear. My mother patted the bed beside me. We were going to explain everything to you at the meeting today. But now that you're here, explain what? I remained standing with my arms crossed over my chest. My father coughed, pulling out folded sheets of paper from his inside jacket pocket. You see, Mira, he began in the tone he used when he talked business. Mom and I have been going over Grandma Agatha's will carefully, and we discovered let's just say there's a legal quirk. What kind of nuance? I felt nausea coming up my throat. The will states that the house passes to you on the condition that you use it as a family home, my mother said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. And you live alone, without a family. That's against the terms of the will. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It didn't make any sense. Grandmother never made such conditions, I objected. I read the will, and there was nothing like that in it. You only read the main part, Leonard interjected, still avoiding my eyes. There are additional terms in the appendix to the will. We'd shown the documents to the lawyer, and he'd confirmed that if the condition wasn't met, the house passed to the next heir in the line, that would be Mom. I stared at them in silence, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. An addendum to the will? Additional stipulations? Grandma had never mentioned anything like that. We were close, she would have told me. Show me that appendix, I demanded, holding out my hand. My father handed me the papers. I looked through them quickly, feeling the ground go from under my feet. The document looked official, the seals, the signatures, the legal terminology. Indeed, it said in black and white that the house was to be used as the Coldrake family residence. It's a forgery, I said, lifting my eyes from the papers. Grandmother would never have written that. The signature is real, my mother objected, pressing her lips together. And so is the notary's seal. You can check if you want. I will, I promised, feeling the rage building inside me. In the meantime, I want to know, why the hell did you break into my house and start repainting it? Technically, it's not your house anymore, Zelda said with that particular tone I'd always hated about her. A mixture of superiority and fake sympathy. Because you broke the terms of the will, the house went to Eunice, and she's been kind enough to let Leonard and me move in. You three will be a real family, her mother added, smiling at Leonard and Zelda. That's exactly what Grandma Agatha would have wanted. I laughed, harshly, bitterly. My relatives exchanged worried glances. Grandmother would roll over in her grave if she knew you were trying to take the house away from me in favor of Leonard, I said, my voice trembling. She never loved you, Mom, and you know it. She left the house to me because she didn't want you to have it. Mother's face contorted with anger. How dare you talk to me like that, after all your father and I have done for you? You've always been ungrateful, always thinking only of yourself. Oh, really? I came closer, looking her straight in the eye. And you think of me when you try to take my house? When you sneak in here and start renovating without even talking to me? We tried to talk to you today, Dad interjected in a conciliatory tone. But you refused to come. And you thought that gave you the right to break into my house with paint and rollers? I shook my head. Even if that document is real, which I'll still check, you have no right to come in here without my permission. It's illegal. We have keys, Zelda shrugged. Leonard took them from the box in your parents' hallway. You left a spare set yourself. So that's it. Now I see why things in the house were moving around and disappearing. They've come here before when I was away. Studying, trying things on, planning. The thought made me shudder. You've been going through my things. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. You were spying on me in my own house. Leonard finally looked up at me. Don't be dramatic. We just wanted to make sure the house was in good condition. Grandmother has put a lot of work into it. It's only fair to have a real family living here, not a lonely. Finish that sentence, and I swear you'll regret it, I interrupted him, feeling the blood rush to my face. There was a heavy pause. The smell of paint seemed suffocating. I looked at the pink wall, at my things piled in the corner, at Zelda's smug face, Leonard's tense face, my mother's angry face, and my father's guilty face. Get out, I said quietly but firmly. What? My mother interjected. I said get out of my house, all of you, now. But we're not done painting, Zelda objected, pointing to the wall. We need to at least. I don't care, I interrupted. You have 5 minutes to gather your things and leave my house. Otherwise, I'm calling the police. You wouldn't dare. My mother rose from the bed, her face contorted with rage. We're your family. Family? I laughed bitterly. Family doesn't break into your house without permission. Family doesn't paint your walls an ugly pink color. Family doesn't forge documents to take away the roof over your head. The papers aren't forged, Leonard exclaimed, stepping forward. We'll see about that, I said, pulling out my phone. Right now, you have 4 minutes to get out of here. They exchanged glances, clearly not expecting this kind of pushback. Finally, my father stood up, putting his hand on my mother's shoulder. Come on, Eunice. Let's give Mira time to calm down. We can discuss this later when everyone has cooled down. There's nothing to discuss, I said. And you can have your paint and brushes. I don't need pink. Zelda snorted but started to gather up her painting supplies. Leonard helped her, casting resentful glances at me as if I was to blame for the whole situation. My mother walked slowly toward the exit, but stopped at the door. You're going to regret this, Mira, she said quietly. You've always been selfish, always thinking only of yourself. Grandmother spoiled you by indulging your whims, but this time you will lose. The law is on our side. We'll see, I said, not averting my gaze. Now get out. They came down the stairs slowly, deliberately leisurely, as if trying to show that they were leaving of their own accord, not because I was kicking them out. I followed on their heels, holding my phone at the ready like it was a weapon. In the hallway, Zelda tried to say something again, but Leonard dragged her toward the door, muttering something about now not being the time. My father avoided my gaze, hurriedly carrying out old boxes and packages. My mother stood on the doorstep, arms crossed over her chest, looking at me with such contempt that it almost burned. You're not going to win, Mira, she repeated. This house will be ours, as it should have been from the beginning. Out, I pointed to the door, feeling my insides clench with anger and pain. When the door finally closed behind them, I leaned against the wall and slowly slid to the floor. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. My first impulse was to call the police, but what would I say? That my own family tried to steal my house? That they had repainted my bedroom pink? I looked around. The house that had always been my sanctuary now seemed desecrated. They were here, touching my things, planning how to get me out of here. The thought made my throat feel nauseous. I went to the door and made sure it was securely locked, then put the extra latch on. The thought of them having keys made me shudder. First thing tomorrow would be to change the locks. I slowly made my way upstairs to my bedroom. Half the wall had already been repainted pale pink, a color I'd always hated. Next to my bed were sheets of paper with the very appendix to my grandmother's will. I picked them up, scrutinizing the signature. It looked very similar to Grandma's, but there was something subtly wrong about the slant of the letters. Call Drake Family Residence, the document read. What nonsense. Grandma would never have written anything like that. She herself had lived in that house alone for the last 30 years after Grandpa died and had always said that home was where you could be yourself, whether you were alone or not. I photographed the documents from every angle, then folded them neatly and put them away in my desk drawer. I'll show them to a lawyer tomorrow. And if they were forgeries, and I was pretty sure they were, my family would be in trouble. Looking at the unfinished wall, I decided I couldn't stay in this room tonight. Even the smell of paint reminded me of betrayal. I gathered the necessary things and moved to the guest bedroom at the end of the hallway. Lying in bed, I tried to comprehend what had happened. My own family, the people who were supposed to support me and protect me, were trying to trick me into taking my home away. And not just take it away, they were planning it, preparing for it, entering my house without permission. Grandma Agatha always told me that family ties are the strongest, but also the most dangerous. No one can hurt you more than those you love, she used to repeat. Now I realized how right she was. The phone vibrated again, a message from Leonard. We just wanted to help. You don't realize how much Mom cares about this house. We'll talk tomorrow when you've cooled down. I didn't respond. There was no point. They'd already shown their true colors, and no words could change what I'd seen today. I closed my eyes, feeling the fatigue come over me. Tomorrow would be a new day, and I would find a way to protect my home. Grandma left it to me for a reason. She knew I would fight for it, and I wouldn't let her down. I woke up to the insistent vibration of my phone. The sunlight streaming through the unfamiliar curtains disoriented me for a moment. I didn't immediately remember that I'd slept in the guest room. The events of yesterday came crashing down on me with renewed force. The pink wall, Zelda's smug smile. We're doing renovations before we move in. Rage rose up in me again in a hot wave. The phone wouldn't go away. I looked at the screen. Mom. My finger hovered over the reset button, but curiosity overpowered. What could she say after yesterday? What other excuses would she come up with? My voice sounded hoarse from sleep. Mur! My mother seemed agitated, even frightened. Can you explain why the police came to see us? I sat up on the bed, trying to make sense of what I had heard. What? What police? Don't pretend! There was panic in her voice. 2 policemen just came to our house. They asked about the incident at your house last night. They said they'd gotten a report of trespassing. I froze, trying to digest this information. The police? I didn't call anyone yesterday. Yes, I had threatened to call the police, but it was a bluff. I didn't want to take my family's problems public. I didn't call anyone, I answered honestly. I have no idea how they found out. Don't lie to me, Mira. My mother's voice shook with anger. Who else could have summoned them? Do you realize the position you've put your father and me in? The cops said it was a serious charge, trespassing. Mom, I really didn't call the police, I repeated, getting out of bed and going to the window. But when you think about it, they're absolutely right. You really are trespassing in my house. This is our family home, she almost shouted. We have as much right to it as you do. No, you don't. The house belongs to me and my will, and a will with a condition, which you broke, she interrupted me. Leonard's already talking to a lawyer. You're gonna regret this, Mur. We're not going to let you besmirch our reputation, and I didn't listen any further. My eyes caught something in the yard. Dexter Povey, my neighbor, was standing by his pickup truck, looking toward my house with obvious concern. Our gazes met, and he nodded slightly before turning away and continuing to fiddle with his car. Mur, are you listening to me? My mother's voice brought me back to the conversation. I'm sorry, Mom, but I have to go, I said. I have an important meeting today. With who? The police? Are you going to tell them more lies about us? I didn't call the police, I said for the 3rd time. But I'm glad someone did. Maybe now you'll think twice before breaking into my house without permission. I disconnected without waiting for an answer. My head was buzzing with conflicting thoughts. Who would call the police? And what exactly had they told my parents? After taking a quick shower, I got dressed and went out into the yard. Dexter was still fiddling with his pickup truck. He'd been my neighbor for 3 years now, ever since I'd moved into my grandmother's house. But we rarely talked for longer than a couple minutes. He seemed like the loner type, not much of a talker, kept to himself. But now I could see him looking in my direction, like he wanted to say something. Good morning, Dexter, I said, approaching the fence. Morning, he nodded, wiping his hands with a rag. Everything okay in there? I saw some visitors. His tone and the pause before the word visitors told me that he'd seen a lot more than he was saying. Not really, I answered honestly. A little family disagreement. He frowned. I wouldn't call it small. I've seen them come into your house with the keys when you've been away, several times in recent weeks. Then I was right. They've been in before, sneaking around my house, preparing their plan. Yesterday I heard the screams, Dexter continued, looking past me. And I saw you kick them out. They didn't look happy. That's an understatement, I smiled weakly. Dexter, you called the police, didn't you? He nodded, still avoiding a direct look. I'm ex-military, Miss Coldrake. I know what trespassing looks like. And what they were doing. It's not what guests do, it's what burglars do. I waited until you kicked them out to make sure you were safe, and then I called the station in the morning. I hope you don't mind. No, not at all. I felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Dexter. It means a lot to me. He finally looked at me, a direct, appraising gaze. Do you have proof that the house is yours? The deed? Everything? Yeah, sure. I have my grandmother's will, certificate of ownership. Keep them in a safe place, he interrupted me. And change the locks. Today. I know a locksmith, I can give you the number. Thank you, I'll do that. Dexter nodded and walked back to his car, signaling the end of the conversation. But I felt like I'd gained an unexpected ally. When I got back to the house, the first thing I did was call a locksmith and arrange to have the locks changed. Then I pulled all the documents related to the house out of the safe. The original will, the certificate of ownership, tax and utility receipts. Reading my grandmother's will, I scrutinized every word, looking for any conditions or clauses. But there were none. The text was very clear. I, Agatha Irene Coldrake, being of sound mind and sound judgment, bequeath the house at 23 Elm Street, Durham, with all the property therein, to my granddaughter, Mira Elizabeth Coldrake. No mention of a family residence or other conditions. I made copies of all the documents and emailed them to myself. Then I called my friend Noah, who worked as a lawyer at a small firm downtown. Noah, it's Mira. I have a problem, and I need your help. An hour later, I was sitting in his office telling him what had happened. Noah listened attentively, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. So, he summarized when I was done, your parents claim to have found some kind of addendum to the will that places a condition on your ownership of the house. And that condition is to use the house as a family residence. Right? Yes. I handed him the pictures of the document the family showed me. This is what they showed me yesterday. Noah scrutinized the photos, frowning harder with each passing second. This is strange. First of all, the attachments to wills are usually worded differently. Second, the signature. He took a magnifying glass out of his desk drawer and scrutinized the photograph again. I'm not an expert graphologist, but something's not right here. You say you have the original will? I nodded and pulled the document out of my bag. Noah compared the signatures on the original will and on the photo of the appendix. See for yourself. He pointed to the details. The slant of the letters is different. In the original, the handwriting is more confident, but here you can see traces of uncertainty, especially in the A and K curls. And the application date is 2 weeks before your grandmother died, right? Yeah, that's what it looks like. And she was in the hospital at the time? Yeah, she spent the last month in hospice care. I felt a lump come up in my throat. She was very weak. She could barely talk, let alone write. Exactly, Noah nodded. I think it's a fake, It's pretty crude, too. I'd recommend a handwriting expert. I have a specialist who can do it quickly and confidentially. I could feel the anger growing inside me. They weren't just trying to steal my house. They'd forged my grandmother's signature, used her name for their machinations. What should I do, Noah? I asked, trying to stay calm. First of all, don't panic. The law is on your side. You have the original will, the certificate of ownership. You pay taxes on the house. Second, we'll run a forensic audit and prove the document is forged. Third, he was silent, as if choosing words. Mira, do you realize that if the examination confirms the forgery, your parents and brother may face serious legal problems? Document forgery is a felony, I wondered. Did I want my family to face criminal penalties? Despite what they had done, they were still my family. But they betrayed me, tried to deprive me of my home, desecrated my grandmother's memory. I don't want to put anyone in jail, I finally said. I just want them to leave me in my house alone. I understand, Noah nodded. Then we can use the forensics as leverage. If they continue to insist on their claims, we'll just show them the evidence of forgery and hint at the possible consequences. They'll probably back off. I hope so, I sighed. Thank you, Noah. You're welcome, he smiled. I'll contact the expert later today. In the meantime, you stay away from your family. And by the way, it's a good thing your neighbor called the police. Now we have official proof of trespassing. Coming home, I felt a little more confident. Noah was right. The law is on my side. If the document really was forged, and I was pretty sure it was, my family wouldn't have a chance to take the house. When I pulled up to the house, a locksmith was already at work, changing the locks. Dexter was watching from his yard, pretending to garden. I waved my hand in thanks and he nodded back. While the locksmith finished the job, I sat on the porch, looking at the photos of the appendix to the will. Something about the document seemed oddly familiar, aside from the forged signature. The wording, the style of presentation. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd seen something like it before. Suddenly it hit me. I rushed into the house to the computer. A few years ago, Leonard had asked me to help him with some legal paperwork, something to do with his job. I remembered emailing him sample wording. I opened the email archive and started looking. After a few minutes, I found what I was looking for, an email from 3 years ago with a sample contract file attached. I opened the document and started reading. And there it was. In the special conditions section, there was almost identical wording to that used in the fake attachment. The property shall be used exclusively as the primary residence of the customer's family. I felt a mixed feeling of triumph and bitterness. Not only had my own brother participated in forging the document, but he had used a text I myself had once sent him to do so. It wasn't even betrayal. It was something far worse. I immediately took a screenshot of the email and sent it to Noah with a short explanation. It was further proof of forgery. My phone vibrated. A message from Leonard. Mira, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Meet me at the Bluebird Cafe in an hour? I hesitated. On the one hand, I wanted to avoid another confrontation. On the other, I now had proof, and I wanted to see his reaction when I presented it. Besides, a public place was a safe option for such a conversation. Okay, I replied. In an hour at the Bluebird. The locksmith finished changing the locks and handed me the new keys. I paid him and asked him to give me a receipt, another documented proof that I was taking steps to protect my property. Before I left, I gathered all the evidence I could find, the original will, photos of the forged appendix, a screenshot of the letter to Leonard with sample text, a receipt from the locksmith. I put it all in a folder and took it with me. As I left the house, I noticed that Dexter was still working in the garden. He looked up as I walked by. Are the new locks installed? He asked. Yes, thanks for the advice. Keep your papers in a safe place, he reminded me. And be careful of your relatives. Family disputes can be the most violent. I know, I smiled weakly. I was on my way to meet my brother. In a public place, I hope? Yes, at a cafe downtown. He nodded, clearly approving of my choice. Good. One more thing. He hesitated, as if he wasn't sure whether to continue. I have security cameras. They cover part of your yard. The footage shows your relatives coming to your house several times in the last 2 weeks, always during the day when you were away, if you need those tapes. Dexter, you have no idea how important this is. I felt a warmth of gratitude welling up inside me. This could be a key piece of evidence. Glad to help. He went back to his garden, but I saw the corners of his lips lift slightly in the hint of a smile. On the way to the cafe, I pondered my upcoming conversation with Leonard. What would he say? Would he deny the forgery or try to justify it? And most importantly, would I ever be able to forgive him and my parents for such a betrayal? I had no answers to these questions. But one thing I did know was that I wouldn't let them take my grandmother's house away from me. Never. The Bluebird Cafe had always struck me as too pretentious for Durham, with its pseudo-French interior and prices clearly aimed at tourists. Leonard had chosen a table in the far corner of the room, almost hidden from the other customers by a massive column. I noticed him as soon as I walked in, tapping his fingers nervously on the table. Alone, without Zelda. That's something. Mira, He stood up as I approached and hesitantly extended his hand for a handshake, as if we were business partners rather than brother and sister. I ignored his hand and sat down across from him, placing the file folder in front of me. "Where are the others?" I asked, looking around. "I thought this was going to be a family meeting." "I thought it would be better if we talked alone first." Leonard sank down in his chair, avoiding my eyes. "Look, things got out of hand yesterday. We didn't want you to find out, the way it happened." "How did you want it to?" I leaned back in my chair. "Sneak me out of my own house? Or did you think I'd just agree and give you the keys when you showed me fake papers?" "They're not fake," he argued, but his voice shook. Leonard had never been a good liar since he was a kid. His right eye twitched when he lied, and now I noticed that familiar tick. "Come on, Leonard." I opened the folder and pulled out a copy of the letter he'd sent me 3 years ago. "Recognize it? You used the wording from the sample contract I'd sent you. It's the same wording, almost word for word, in the appendix to Grandma's will." He paled as he stared at the piece of paper. "That doesn't prove anything. Coincidence." "Coincidence?" I grinned bitterly. "Will the handwriting examination be a coincidence too? I've already sent the documents to be checked. What do you think the expert will say when he compares the signature on the original will with the one on your forgery?" There's a twinkle of fear in his eye. Listen." "No, you listen." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Forgery is a felony, Leonard. Do you realize you could go to jail? And it's not just you, Mom and Dad too. You were all in on it." He swallowed, clearly nervous. "We didn't mean any harm. It's a complicated situation." "What kind of situation? What would make you go to the trouble of forging documents and trying to steal my house?" Leonard sighed and rubbed his face with his hands, suddenly looking like his father, the same gesture he used to make when he was exhausted or upset. "My parents are in debt," he finally admitted. "Huge debts. Dad. He'd invested all his savings and part of his retirement savings in some dubious scheme. Promised high returns, golden mountains. In the end, he lost everything and still owed money." I felt something inside me squeeze. My father had never been particularly practical in financial matters, but this? "So instead of confessing and asking for help, you decided to steal my house?" "We didn't mean to steal," Leonard objected. "It's just, Mom always thought that Grandma's house should have gone to her. She could never accept the fact that Grandma left it to you. And when the debts came up, she remembered that. The plan was to, sell the house, pay off the debts, and split the rest of the money equally between all of us. You'd get your share too." "How generous," I gritted my teeth. "Would you sell the house where I live and generously give me some of the money? And where would I live? Have you thought about that? You could rent an apartment, or move in with us for a while." He shrugged, as if that was the most natural solution. "With you? After you betrayed me? Are you serious, Leonard?" The waitress came over and we both gave her a strained smile. I only ordered coffee, Leonard ordered a pastry and tea. His love of sweets always showed up in stressful situations. When she left, I continued, "And who came up with the idea to forge the documents? Mom?" Leonard looked down and it was clear to me. "So she did. And you agreed to help her do it. So did Dad." "He was against it at first," Leonard said quietly. "But then the debt collectors started calling, making threats. You can't imagine the state he was in, Mira. I was afraid he was going to have a heart attack. And then my mom told me she had a solution." "A solution based on lies and fakery." I shook my head. "And you think that justifies your actions?" "No, of course not." He looked genuinely remorseful. "But we were desperate. And Mom, you know how she can be when she gets something in her head." Oh yes, I knew. My mother, Eunice Coldrake, was one of the most stubborn women in the world. When she made up her mind about something, no moral or ethical consideration could stop her. "How much?" I asked after a pause. "What? How much do they owe?" Leonard said the amount and I whistled. Massive debts indeed. No wonder they were panicking. But that still didn't justify them trying to steal my house. "I can help," I said. "Not all of it, of course, but some of it. If they apologize and promise never to do it again." "They won't accept your help," Leonard interrupted me. "Especially Mom. You know her pride." "Her pride didn't stop her from forging documents. I said dryly. That's different, he shook his head. In her mind, the house should have belonged to her in the first place. She thinks she's just righting an injustice. I laughed bitterly, without mirth. Injustice? Grandma had every right to dispose of her property as she saw fit, and she had decided to leave the house to me, not my mom, for reasons that were important to her. Because you were her favorite, Leonard said, resentment lingering in his voice. You were always special. To your grandmother, to your teachers, to everyone. Our Mira is so smart. Our Mira got into a prestigious university. Our Mira works for such an important company. What about me? I've always been just ordinary. That's it. It wasn't just financial necessity behind the attempt to steal my house. It was lingering resentment, jealousy, envy. Leonard, I was never trying to be special. I was just living my life, doing what I liked, and always thinking of myself, he finished for me. When your parents needed help, where were you? When mom got sick 2 years ago, who sat with her in the hospital? Yeah. When my dad needed help fixing up the house, who came every weekend? Me too. And you were always too busy with your important work and your perfect life at Grandma's house. His words hit a nerve. Yeah, I wasn't the perfect daughter. Yes, I kept my distance from my parents, especially my mother, who always criticized me, always found faults in what I did. But I never refused their help when they really needed it. I didn't know my father had lost the money, I said quietly. You never told me about it. Because you knew how you'd react, Leonard shrugged, with your lectures about fiscal responsibility and common sense. And instead of asking for help, you decided to steal my house. I shook my head. That's a great decision. I'll give you that. Our conversation was interrupted by the phone ringing. My cell phone came to life with the ringtone I had set for my mother. I looked at the screen and showed it to Leonard. Apparently, she was tired of waiting for your report on our meeting. Don't tell her I told her everything. I saw fear in his eyes. She'll be furious. Did you think I'd be happy? I sighed and answered the phone. Yes, Mom? Myrrh. Her voice sounded tense. We're waiting for you at home. We need to talk as a family. I'm just talking to Leonard, I answered calmly. And you know what? I'm shocked by what I found out. There was a pause. Then she said, clearly trying to control her voice, What are you talking about? Forging documents, Mom, about your debts, your plan to sell my house. Leonard! Her scream was so loud I pulled the phone away from my ear. You told her everything? He's not the only source of information, Mom. I decided to defend my brother a little. I have proof of the forgery, and a witness who saw you trespassing in my house while I was away. This is a family matter, she objected. And there's no need to make us out to be criminals. We just wanted to steal my house, I finished for her, and sell it to pay off the debts my father had incurred because of his financial illiteracy. How dare you talk about your father like that? There was genuine outrage in her voice. After all he's done for you, who paid for your university tuition? Who bought you your first car? And that gives you the right to take my house? It's not your house, she was almost screaming. It was supposed to be mine. I'm Agatha's daughter, not you. It was my inheritance that my grandmother deliberately chose to leave to me, not you. I tried to speak calmly, even though I was seething inside, for reasons she knew, because she always loved you more. I could hear tears in my mother's voice. She was always unfair to me, always criticizing, always finding faults. And then she took away the last thing she could give me, her home. I felt something clench in my chest. Behind my mother's anger was a pain that lingered, that never healed, the pain of a rejected daughter. And suddenly I realized this whole conflict wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about feelings that never found an outlet, about words that were never spoken. Mom, I spoke softer. I understand how you feel, but that doesn't justify what you did. You don't understand anything. She raised her voice again. You've never been in my shoes. Always the favorite, always special. You have no idea what it's like to be rejected by your own mother. Do you have any idea what it's like to be betrayed by your own family? I countered. How does it feel to find out that your parents and brother were planning to kick you out of your house? Leonard sat across from me, clearly wanting to fall through the ground. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "We weren't going to throw you out on the street," my mother argued. "You would have gotten your share of the sale." "I don't want a share. I want to stay in my house." I was beginning to lose my patience. "The house my grandmother left me, and which you tried to steal by forging documents." "It was your father's idea," she said suddenly. "He suggested we find this appendix to the will. He has a notary who knows a notary who—" "Mom!" Leonard finally spoke up, grabbing the phone from me. "Stop it! You're making it worse." I heard her continue to say something, but Leonard cut the conversation off and handed the phone back to me. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "She's just upset. And giving away all your secrets." I shook my head. "So the idea for the fake ID was Dad's? And you said he was against it." "He was against it at first." Leonard looked completely miserable. "But then, when the pressure from the creditors increased, you can't imagine how he felt. He'd always been a proud man, and now he had to ask for an extension, humiliate himself, and he decided it was better to deceive his own daughter." I nodded. "I see." My phone rang again, this time from my father. I answered it, putting it on speaker. "Mira." His voice sounded tired. "Come to us, please. We need to talk face to face. This whole thing, out of control." "Yes. When your plan to steal my house was revealed, it was definitely out of control." I couldn't hold back the sarcasm. "I know what we did was wrong," he sighed. "And I'm willing to admit it. Just give us a chance to explain ourselves. You need to understand why we did what we did." "I already know why," I replied. "Leonard told me everything. About the debts. About your brilliant plan to sell my house." "Damn it, Leonard." I could hear the irritation in my father's voice. "We had a deal." "It's not his fault," I interrupted him. "I would have found out anyway. I have proof of the forgery, Dad, and a witness to you trespassing in my house." There was a long pause. Then my father said quietly, almost in a whisper, "I know there's no excuse for what we did, but we were desperate, Mira. I lost all our savings. Your mom had to go back to work at her age. Leonard had to take on extra part-time work in the evenings." "And neither of you thought to come to me for help?" I asked. "Instead of planning to steal my house?" "We, I, he stammered. "I couldn't admit to you that I'd lost all our money. I couldn't bear the thought of you despising me for it. But now I despise you for lying and trying to steal it. Is that better?" "No." His voice trembled. "It's much worse." Leonard sat with his head down, clearly feeling out of sorts. I sighed. "Okay, Dad, I'll be there, in an hour. And we'll talk about this openly and honestly. But I want you to know I'm not giving up the house. No way." "I understand," he said quietly. "Thank you for agreeing to come." I ended the call and looked at Leonard. "Will you come with me?" "Yes." He nodded. "I think I'd better be there." On the way to my parents' house, we barely spoke. Leonard stared out the window, absorbed in his own thoughts, while I tried to pull myself together for the confrontation ahead. What would I tell my parents? Would I be able to stay calm when my mother started accusing me of all sins? How would I react to my father's confession? I had no answers to these questions. I only knew one thing. I would not let them manipulate me. I would not let them turn me into a guilty person. No matter what happened, I would stand my ground. My parents' house looked exactly the same as it always had, neat and tidy, with an immaculately mowed lawn and roses blooming on the porch. Mom had always paid a lot of attention to appearance, both at home and her own. "What will the neighbors think?" was her eternal question, her main criterion for decision-making. Leonard and I walked up to the porch. Before knocking, I turned to him. "You ready?" He looked like he'd rather be anywhere but here. But he nodded. "Yeah, let's get this over with. The last 3 months have been a nightmare." After that conversation with my parents, I finally realized there was no way to save our relationship. My mother refused to admit her guilt, still insisting that the house should justly belong to her. My father, who at first seemed remorseful, quickly reverted to his usual tactic of silently following his wife. And Leonard, he tried to play the peacemaker, but I could see he was on their side. Noah, my lawyer friend, insisted on taking the case to trial. If we don't put a stop to it legally, he said, they'll never leave you alone. They'll try again and again. And he turned out to be right. When I refused their offer to split the value of the house after the sale, they moved on to threats. First, they hinted that they might accidentally tell my superiors about some problems with the law that I didn't have. Then my father remembered that he had partially paid for my schooling and said he could demand that money back through the courts. I was hurt. Not from the threats. I knew that legally there was nothing they could do to me. It hurt to realize that my family was willing to do such a thing for money. It wasn't just about money, though. For my mother, it was a matter of principle. She couldn't accept the fact that my grandmother chose me over her. And my father, well, he always took the path of least resistance. Today was the last day of the trial. I sat in the courtroom feeling strangely calm. The last 3 months of preparation for this moment had drained me emotionally, and now I felt only fatigue and a desire for it to be over soon. The court finds, the judge's voice sounded dry and formal, that the appendix to Agatha Irene Coldrake's will submitted by the defendants is a forgery. According to the opinion of expert graphologists, the signature on the document does not correspond to the original signature of the testator. In addition, the notary whose seal is on the document confirmed that he had never certified the document. I glanced at my parents sitting on the opposite side of the hall. The mother was staring straight ahead, her face stony. Father looked 10 years older. Leonard was nervously fidgeting with his tie. The court recognizes the plaintiff, Mira Elizabeth Coldrake, as the sole legal owner of the real property at 23 Elm Street, Durham, in accordance with the original will of Agatha Irene Coldrake. Court costs shall be borne by the defendants. The clang of the judge's gavel put an end to the story. I felt not joy but relief. At last this nightmare was over. At least legally. Noah, sitting next to me, put his hand on my shoulder. Congratulations. The house is officially yours with no conditions or reservations. I nodded, gathering my paperwork. Thanks for your help, Noah. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you would have, he smiled. You used your professional skills better than any detective, finding evidence of forgery, tracing emails, getting witness statements. I just put it all in a legal framework. He was right. My cybersecurity work unexpectedly came in handy in a family dispute. I was able to recover Leonard's deleted emails discussing the details of the forgery with his father. I found drafts of the application on the family computer with different wording. And Dexter's security camera footage was the decisive evidence of my home invasion. On my way out of the courtroom, I ran into my parents. My mother defiantly turned away. My father took a hesitant step in my direction, but then changed his mind and followed his wife. Only Leonard lingered. Myrrh. His voice sounded uncertain. Maybe we could talk. Not now, of course, but later when everyone's calmed down. About what, Leonard? I looked him in the eye. About how you planned to steal my house? Or how you lied to my face claiming the documents were real? I know what we did was wrong. He looked genuinely remorseful. But we're still family, Mira. Are you really willing to cut all ties because of one mistake? One mistake? I grinned bitterly. You trespassed in my house, forged my grandmother's signature, planned to put a roof over my head. And when I revealed your plan, instead of apologizing, you threatened me. This isn't one mistake, Leonard. It's a series of deliberate, violent acts. But the parents, they're desperate about the debt. You should have seen Mom crying last night. She's afraid that now they'll have to sell their house to pay off. Stop! I held up my hand. Don't even try to be pathetic. I offered them financial assistance, no strings attached. They refused. Pride trumped honesty. So what now? I could see the worry in his eyes. You're just going to cut us out of your life? I wondered. Really, what now? Could I continue to hang out with the people who'd betrayed me so cynically? Pretend like nothing happened at family dinners? Listen to my mother's passive-aggressive comments about how some people put material values above family ties? Yes, I finally answered. Exactly. I'm cutting you out of my life, all three of you. His face contorted in pain. Myrrh, please. Goodbye, Leonard. I turned and walked toward the exit, feeling something heavy release my heart with every step. Dexter was waiting for me outside the courthouse, leaning against his pickup truck. In those 3 months, we'd grown unexpectedly close. He was not just a neighbor, but a true friend, trustworthy, loyal, and supportive without a word. His testimony in court was as concise and precise as a sniper's shot. He had seen my family members illegally enter my house at least 5 times in the last month. "So, is it over?" he asked, opening the car door for me. "Yeah." I climbed into the pickup. "The court declared the deeds forged. The house is officially mine, no strings attached." "Good." He nodded, starting the engine. "What are you going to do next?" "Change the color of the bedroom," I answered without thinking. "In fact, I'm going to redecorate the whole house. In my own way. The way I want, not the way someone else thinks is right." Dexter smiled understandingly. "Sounds like a plan. If you need help with heavy furniture or anything else, let me know." "Thank you." I was truly grateful for his support. For everything. At home, the first thing I did was go up to the bedroom. Half of the wall was still covered in that awful pink paint Zelda had chosen. Every time I looked at it, I remembered the day I found my family sneakily repainting my room. The day the masks were ripped off. I pulled an old t-shirt out of my closet, pulled it on instead of a blouse, and started pulling pictures off the walls. My parents at my graduation, Leonard and I fishing with my dad, family Christmas. With each picture I took off the wall, I could feel the past receding, making room for something new. The next few days passed in feverish activity. I took a leave of absence from work and fully immersed myself in the renovation. I decided to paint the bedroom walls a deep blue, Grandma Agatha's favorite color. She always said that blue calms the soul and clarifies thoughts. While working on the renovation, I thought a lot about my grandmother, about how she lived alone in this house, but never felt lonely. "Loneliness is a state of mind, not the number of people around you," she used to say, and I was beginning to understand what she meant. On the fourth day of the renovation, Dexter arrived with a box of tools and offered to help. Together, we replaced the old cabinets in the kitchen, fixed the creaking floorboards on the second floor, and installed new blinds in the living room. We talked a lot at work, about the past, about plans for the future, about life in general. He talked about his military service, his divorce that happened 5 years ago, his son who is in college on the other side of the country. "You know," he said one day as we sat on the porch, tired after a full day of work, "sometimes the best family is the one we create ourselves, not necessarily through bloodlines, but through shared values, mutual respect." I pondered his words. Maybe he's right. Maybe a real family is not those with whom your genes bind you, but those who support you, respect your boundaries, rejoice in your successes. One evening, when most of the renovation was complete, I sat down to sort through a box of old photos. There were pictures from my childhood, adolescence, college years, and most of them featured members of my family. I scrutinized each photo, trying to find a twinge of nostalgia or regret. But all I felt was relief. Relief that this chapter of my life was closed. That I no longer had to pretend like everything was okay at family dinners. Not having to listen to my mother criticize my career, my looks, my personal life. I don't have to watch my father blithely agree with her on everything. I didn't have to endure the condescending attitude of Leonard, who always considered himself the real adult in the family, even though he was younger than me. I put all the pictures back in the box and took it out to the backyard. There, I built a small fire in an old metal barrel that my grandmother used to burn fall leaves. Photo after photo was sent into the fire, a symbolic act of purification, of letting go of the past. As I watched the flames devour the paper, I thought about how ironic this whole situation was. My family wanted to take my house away from me, but ended up losing me. They were so focused on the material value of my grandmother's inheritance that they forgot the true value: family bonds, trust, love. The last one to go into the fire was a photo from my childhood birthday party. I was 7 years old. It showed us all together, me in the center with a festive cap on my head, my mother and father on the sides, Grandma Agatha a little behind, and little Leonard looking enviously at my birthday cake. We looked like a perfect, happy family. But it was only an illusion, a facade that hid envy, resentment, misunderstanding. Watching that photo turn to ashes, I felt not sadness, but release. It was as if the heavy weight I had been carrying all my life had finally been lifted. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of newness, the sunlight streaming through the new blinds, the blue walls of the bedroom, the lack of pictures on the walls. It all made it feel like a clean slate, a new beginning. I went down to the kitchen and turned on the coffee maker. I could see Dexter's yard through the window. He was already fiddling with his pickup truck, like he did almost every morning. I waved and he waved back. My phone vibrated, a message from Noah. Just wanted to warn you. Your parents have filed an appeal, but don't worry, they don't stand a chance. All the evidence is on our side. I felt neither surprise nor disappointment, only calm determination. They won't give up easily, and neither will I. This house is my inheritance, my refuge, my fortress, and I will defend it to the end. After drinking my coffee, I went back upstairs to my bedroom and went to the window. I could see the city from here, the rooftops, the spire of the old church, the park in the distance. Grandmother Agatha had often stood here, watching the life of the city, the changing of the seasons. Now that tradition was passed on to me. I opened the window, letting in the fresh morning air. Somewhere nearby, a bird was singing a clear, clear sound, full of hope. I inhaled deeply, feeling the confidence grow in me with each breath. Yes, my blood relatives had betrayed me. But that doesn't mean I'm alone. I have friends who have supported me in my time of need. I have Dexter, whose silent support has been more important than 1,000 words. There's Noah, who helped me protect my rights. And there's this house, a living reminder of Grandma Agatha, of her strength and independence and wisdom. I turned and looked around the room. Blue walls, new curtains, minimal furniture, just the way I wanted it. Not a trace of the pink paint that Zelda loved so much. Not a single family photo to remind me of the past. Just the present and the future. This was my home, my space, my life. And no one else dared to tell me what to do with it. I smiled at my reflection in the mirror. There was no more doubt or fear in my eyes. Only the calm confidence of a woman who knows her worth and will not let anyone, even those closest to her, undermine it. This conflict taught me a lot. It showed me who truly deserved a place in my life. It taught me how to set boundaries and defend them. It helped me realize that sometimes the breakup of a relationship is not a tragedy, but a necessary step toward a healthy, fulfilling life. Most importantly, he helped me realize that I am stronger than I thought, that I am capable of standing up for myself, even if I have to stand up to my own family. At that moment, the phone rang, and Leonard's name popped up on the screen. I stared at it for a few seconds, then firmly pressed the block contact button. I did the same with my parents' numbers. This was the final point in our story. I went downstairs, put on my work clothes, and went out into the yard. Today, I plan to do some gardening, plant some new flowers, the ones my grandmother loved. Blue delphiniums, purple irises, white roses, to transform the space around the house just as I had transformed the space inside and within myself. A new chapter of my life was just beginning, and this chapter was all mine. No toxic relationships, no manipulation, no guilt. Just my life, my choices, my path.